What has been the biggest lessons learned from your entrepreneurial experience?
So many lessons, but just one that I want to share, which is, I think, applicable even beyond those that are in the entrepreneurial space, which is really focusing on how to make your perceived weaknesses your strengths. And that's become really important.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Women in Engineering, Success Stories from STEM Professionals. I'm your host, Tiffany Teegee, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to our new co-host, Rebecca Swabey, professional engineer. We'll talk about Rebecca's background, the kind of work she does, and how she plans to bring her expertise to the show. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. Welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast. I'm excited to have you join us today as a co-host. So now let's jump right into the main segment of our show. Welcome, Rebecca Swabey.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, so excited to be co-hosting with you, and excited to jump into your questions.
Awesome. Can you talk about your academic journey and decision to study environmental engineering?
Absolutely. I took a bit of a random path to get to environmental engineering. I loved math in high school, as many of us do, but I chose to focus on environmental science as my choice for university because I was really interested in environmental issues, wanted to make an impact in that area. But at the last minute, I saw a pamphlet for a volunteer program, and I ended up taking a gap year instead, which was really important for me at the time because I ended up meeting some really amazing mentors along the way. One of them happened to be an environmental engineer, and he explained to me how the practical applications can be really satisfying to be part of and contribute to. And, it was just sort of a number of conversations with that person, and I decided, hey, you know what, let's make the switch. Luckily, it was pretty easy to do so. I hadn't even started school yet, so I just jumped into environmental engineering after that gap year.
I love it. It's amazing how you can turn around things. It's just one person can plant that seed and allow you to be able to now go on a whole different path. So that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Now talk to me. You worked in the consulting industry for almost a decade. Can you talk about your experience and any big takeaways?
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been a pretty shy person most of my life. And the transition from university, which is, a safe, fun environment with your friends and peers, into the consulting world was pretty abrupt for me. I remember feeling pretty terrified, and I have vivid memories of, that first report that you turn in for review, that first meeting with your boss, that first client meeting that you over prepare for. So that really stuck out to me. But looking back, one of the biggest takeaways is really with experience comes confidence. And I can see that clearly now. At the time, it was not that I couldn't do it. It's just that I didn't have the experience under my belt to feel confident. And one of the big takeaways is really lean into that. The things that make you feel uncomfortable, the topics that maybe you don't have a handle on when you're new, that's a great time to ask as many questions as possible and be curious. But it's important anytime. And I'll say in my business now, the people I'm most excited about working with are curious. Doesn't matter if they're day one or they have 20 years of experience, because I feel I can trust them with what they're doing. They're coming at it with a genuine curiosity for the problems that we're trying to solve. So that never goes away.
That's it. And I think that's what comes with it, with the curiosity, asking those questions. I mean, if you don't know, you rather know so you won't mess up, because in our industry, safety is important, and the impact that we're making is key. So I love it.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about, can you share a bit about your background and your journey as the CEO and co-founder of Equator Studios? Talk about it.
Sure. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm founder of a tech startup. After working in consulting, this is where I've ended up. Again, a bit of a random journey to get here. When I was working in consulting, I had a good friend who was a computer programmer, and at a coffee shop one day, we saw a poster that advertised a hackathon. It was basically a competition solving problems related to surface water quality in the Great Lakes area. And so we thought, hey, free pizza, do something fun, try something new. And we ended up participating. And one thing led to another. We ended up placing third. They gave us a small but giant novelty check. And, some of the things that we had to do right after were incorporate the business. To get the money, we had to incorporate the business. And so it was a little bit random, but that was how we got our start. Ultimately, we pivoted the problems that we were focused on many times over the years. But the reason why I kept going, why we've kept going, is because we've always got success and traction pulling us forward. So we started with one thing that worked pretty well, but then we realized, okay, we need to change and pivot a little bit, did something else, received some more funding, gained some more traction. Okay, you need to pivot again, do it again, get some more revenue, start to actually build your company. And, it was, looking back, many twists and turns, like I said, but it's been an amazing journey. And I love the entrepreneurial world.
Yes. I mean, it's always something different. You don't know what you're going to get into, but that learning process comes with it as well. So the funding is glad you got funding. You say you started with little, but then you came in and it grew. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And actually, I should say what we pivoted. So we actually started with a hardware solution. It was a soil sampling device for precision agriculture. Our idea was to do a low-cost soil sampling device. But then we realized, okay, we need to place this data on a map. Okay, we need low-cost, high-precision GPS. We started thinking about that. And then we realized hardware is pretty expensive when you don't have a lot of money in the bank to manufacture this at a scale that's meaningful. So then we ended up pivoting to software. And that's how we landed building mapping software. And that has been going really well and fueling the business. And just recently this year, we started onto a new endeavor, which is basically helping support the proposal process as well. So you can sort of see how it's evolved almost naturally.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. The impact that you're making, that's the key with it. Now, let's talk about this day-to-day basis. Your experience in engineering consulting and co-founding your company sounds impressive. Can you tell us more about the type of work you're involved in on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So when you start a company, you're employee number one, and that means you're doing everything in the early days. And I'm very grateful for it because I've had the chance to learn many new skills, from creating a website and learning about SEO and the basics of marketing to the sales process, which is actually very interestingly more similar to an engineering process than I thought. There's a lot of data involved. There's a lot of experimentation, and it can be very interesting. I've gotten involved in product development. I've never actually written code for any of our products. We have great developers that are much more qualified than me that do that, but I have done a lot of testing and making sure that the value that we promise is delivered at the other end. And that's actually my big focus at the moment with, new solutions that we're working on. Is we've done market validation. We have interested users in the market, but I have to make sure that at the end of the day, what we put out there does what we say it does and does it really well. So yeah, that's what it looks like now.
Love it. Love it. I mean, you say it's a journey. This entrepreneurship is a journey. So as we continue to talk about that, what has been the biggest lessons learned from your entrepreneurial experience?
So many lessons, but just one that I want to share, which is, I think, applicable even beyond those that are in the entrepreneurial space, which is really focusing on how to make your perceived weaknesses your strengths. And that's become really important in what I'm doing because there's so many biases that people have against you, especially in the startup world. So for example, if you're fundraising for your business, there's a lot of signals and, the cookie cutter version of what a tech startup founder looks like. And so coming in there, if you hold these ideas in your mind too, then you're already cutting yourself out. So you really do need to do a deep dive in what's unique about you and really figuring out how to position that in the most positive light. Because at the end of the day, we don't need another business that's a carbon copy or another founder that's a carbon copy. It's your fingerprint and it's your unique view and perspective that you bring into the world. And you need to embrace that. And so just to give you an example, a lot of venture capital funds investing in startups, they might be really interested in finding a company that's brand new. They've been around for 3 months, but yet they've already signed up, 100 customers and their graph is starting to hockey stick. And that's really exciting. And so there's a bit of a bias against companies that have been around for many more years because they just want to invest in something new and fresh potentially. And so you need to think about that and go into the meeting with that in mind and figure out how to position, it's not that we've been around for 5 years and look at all of this experience, look at all these things that we've tried and we've learned, and we're actually much more qualified at the end of the day for these reasons. And so, yeah, just one example, but you do a deep dive on the things that are keeping you up at night and figure out how you can reposition them as a strength.
That's great. That's great. And it's always a learning process. You learn from the different things, and how can you improve upon them has been a big thing with the journey. So talk to me, what can you share for anyone in the profession who is interested in starting their own business?
Yeah. So when I was working in consulting, I kind of had a feeling that I wasn't always going to be doing that job. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but there were sort of 3 general paths that I was aware of: switch and work at another company, go work for the client, so possibly a municipality, a government client, or go back to school, learn something new, get a master's. And so this wasn't on my radar at all. And so I just want to encourage people to, branch out a little bit and take a risk. If it is something they're interested, if you have an idea, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, really just go for it. There's lots of other options out there. And the hardest thing is, I like to say, getting on the bus, making that decision. Sometimes we think about making a change for a long time, and it can be very difficult to actually take that step. It's not necessarily starting a company. It could be within an organization too. You want to ask for a different role, you want a promotion, you want to do something a little bit differently, taking that step. But once you take that step, things are in action. Things start to go. And it's actually more difficult to go backwards once you've taken that step. So I would say if you have an idea, go for it, and the rest will fall into place because you'll make it happen.
Great advice. Great advice. I love it. I love it. Now I'm going to transition to being a co-host. You hearing it? Let's go ahead and talk about it. As the new co-host, what are some of the topics or discussions you're most excited to bring to the Women in Engineering podcast?
Truly, all of it. I actually much prefer being on the other side, asking the questions. I love hearing people's stories, and especially I love hearing stories about a transformation. So I love hearing, what obstacles did you face? What hardships have you faced in your life? What did you do to overcome it? And how did that change you as a person? I don't want to make those mistakes. I want to learn from you guys. So I know we all need to walk through our own journeys, but I really find that in my life, I've gotten so much from listening to podcasts like this and others out there to really just, see how others have grown. And a lot of times you see yourself in those people too, in different aspects of it. And so you don't feel as alone. And that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, when you start talking to others, you're just like, I can relate. We have so much in common, and it's like the listeners and everyone can hear the same. So I'm excited to have you as a co-host as well. And they're going to be able to learn from you. You learn from each other. And I love it. I love it. Now talk to me. How do you see the role of women in engineering evolving? And how do you think our podcast can contribute to this important conversation?
Great question. And to the first part of that, I am going to say that's why I'm here, because I want to figure that out. I'm going to, just step back from answering that, because truly I am interested in hearing from everyone that we speak to, somebody that's just graduated or going into school to somebody who's had a long career. Collectively, I think these stories that you've been pulling out of people and telling are really, that's the answer. I can't say, what my personal view is. This is the answer, is the collection of stories. And so just excited, as I said, to start to be part of that conversation as well.
And it's amazing to hear the journeys and knowing that you're playing a role with getting the message out there and getting it out there is just key. I love it. I love it. So thank you for taking on this role as partnering together to be able to get these inspiring stories out there, because the message needs to get out there. And I love it. I love that you're playing a role with it. Now, as we close out, I want to be able to ask this. Do you have any advice for aspiring women engineers, especially those looking to innovate and lead in their fields?
Absolutely. Just going back to what I said earlier, just go for it and think about how to get on that bus that's going to take you to where you want to go. Take that step, especially surrounding yourself with people that are going to encourage you at the right time to do that. this business is very relationship driven in general. And so, like I said at the beginning, sometimes it just, and you reflected it as well, like sometimes it just takes one conversation with somebody that you meet randomly. It doesn't even have to be at work. It could be, you take piano lessons on the side and all of a sudden, you have like an epiphany. So I would say try to surround yourself with great people, seek them out, seek opportunities to participate and to grow and to learn. And you'll find your way. The career journey and life journey is more often winding than not. And it usually makes sense looking back. So just stick with it.
I mean, that's some great advice. Now, you've shared, your company and everything. How can people learn more from you or get, more info from you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about me or connect with me, I'd be very happy to on LinkedIn. I'm accessible there. I'd love to have a conversation, as well as through our company website, which is equatorstudios.com. Those are probably the best ways.
Love it. Well, Rebecca, it has been a pleasure to learn more about you. The people get to learn more about you. And thank you for all that you're doing. And I look forward to being a co-host with you.
Same. I have so much to learn, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.